Okay, Tim. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about the nature of the organization of American government?
All right. Well, that's commonly misunderstood. Citizens have all sovereignty in American jurisprudence, and a lot of people, especially in the 10th Amendment movement, are referred to as states' rights. That's only shorthand. The fact is that citizens maintain all sovereignty. Citizens give most of the sovereignty to the states, and then they give a certain amount to the federal government as well. The federal government's sovereignty is determined by looking into the Constitution. The majority of the things that the federal government, the authorities that the federal government have, are listed in the Constitution. As a matter of fact, all of them. The federal government has enumerated powers, and there's a certain thing in law called the enumerated powers doctrine. If you give a list of powers to a person or a entity in government, then they are understood not to have anything beyond that list of powers. Now, on the states in turn, which are actually understood to be sovereign states, minus the very few limitations that are placed in the Constitution on states, they have virtually plenary authority. That is, authority to do just about anything. And the reason that that's okay in American government is the citizens are able to remove their consent from the states much easier than the federal government. Now let's look at this for a second. Think, if the federal government becomes tyrannical, imagine that. Let's say they become tyrannical. How do you remove your consent from the federal government? You have to remove your consent by actually leaving the country. Now that's a far shot longer than the Oregon government becomes tyrannical and I go 30 miles over the border to Washington. So in a state government, you can always remove your consent much easier. Plus, in the state of Oregon, I could easily, well, not easily, but I could much more easily obtain office and make serious changes to the way that the state of Oregon operates than the United States government. So that's the nature of the two branches of government. Now, within each branch, of course, they're set up with three individual branches: judicial, executive, and legislative, which are supposed to put checks and balances on each of them. But the state is the main check on government authority in the federal branch. I think that should be just about the whole thing. Did you have any other questions?
On that? Thank you for that good basic understanding. Just a side note, when they were forming this government, what seems to be the intent? Were they looking for a strong central authority to control the country, or were they looking for the power to be dispersed amongst the states in a general sense?
Well, in general, they were attempting to maintain the independence of the states, and in several places in the Federalist Papers, they referred that every state will be a sovereign entity.
A country in and of itself.
Sovereign country.
A state, like State of Israel,
Yes.
is a country. State means a country.
Every state will retain the sovereignty that by the Constitution they have not expressly delegated to the federal government. And in the Articles of Confederation, there was actually an article that said, by this, all states retain all sovereignty that they have not expressly delegated in this the Articles of Confederation. So the fact is that the states retain all authority that they did not delegate, and in the 10th Amendment makes it clear that they retain all that authority. And it makes it clear in two ways. First, it says that the federal government has only the powers that are enumerated to it in the Constitution. But then it also strengthens that by saying it also does not have the powers that are not forbidden to the states in the Constitution. So the states and the individuals are strengthened by that. The sovereignty still remains with the state governments. The federal government has a very small amount. Of course, in recent times they've taken a lot more. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.